I always love a good book, and I especially love a good book on military history. And one of the books I have read fairly recently is this one here, The Battle of the Atlantic by Ted Barris. And this is a fantastic book. When we think about the Second World War, we often think of the battles that took place on land, invasions, D-Day. We think of bombing campaigns and all of that. And yet, we often forget that Britain was in a very rough place for much of the Second World War, that they relied upon other nations to provide their basic supplies, both in terms of military equipment, but also just the food that was needed to feed their population. And so those supplies needed to get to Britain. The problem was the U-boats. There was more than just U-boats. The German Navy used other ships as well, but the real problem was the U-boats, and they were sinking these ships that were bringing those much-needed supplies to Britain. And so the Battle of the Atlantic really was the fight to protect those convoys and to get them from North America. And so that would include New York, but a lot of it was from Canada, from Halifax, from Sydney, and getting those supplies across the Atlantic Ocean without being sunk. And it was really, really tough. In fact, Winston Churchill said it was the part of the war that had him worried the most was the Battle of the Atlantic. And Ted Barris, who, by the way, I've read a number of his books, and I've loved every one of them. They are great books if you're interested in military history. He has some great stuff. And he's a Canadian author, and he focuses on the Canadian side of military history, which just so happens that Canada played a pivotal role in the Battle of the Atlantic. Now, he is not just there to cheer on Canada, because he acknowledges that at one point in the Battle of the Atlantic, the Canadian Navy wasn't doing very well, and they were actually taken off for a bit. But they got their act together. Now, let's be honest, part of the problem was the best equipment went to the American and British navies, and Canada was often left with some second-rate equipment for detecting subs. And so that was one of the issues that were going on. But he goes into all of that detail here. Now, I really enjoyed this because I happen to live in Nova Scotia, and I often visit Halifax. I have been to Sydney a couple times, and it's amazing to think of these U-boats coming so close. They came right up to Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. They went down the St. Lawrence River, and parts of the Battle of Atlantic were happening just not far from where I am recording this video right now. And so I personally found it very, very interesting. I learned a lot, and I really appreciated everything that's in here. So if you are interested in the history of the Second World War, a couple things that I would want to say to you. First of all, buy this book, and I'm going to include an Amazon affiliate link in the show notes, and so I would love it if you would use that link in order to buy this book. Secondly, I would encourage you to subscribe to my Second World War podcast that I happen to host, and you can find it on your favorite podcast carrier. And also, if you're interested in the Battle of Atlantic, my favorite movie on this, and this is a freebie, happens to be Greyhound. I just really, really enjoyed that. I believe it's on Apple TV, and it's not a long movie, but it is nonstop action, and it's really, really good. So I recommend you check that out. Between watching that movie and reading this book, you're going to get a really good idea of what it was like for those brave, not just sailors in terms of the Royal Canadian Navy, but also the merchantmen as well, that were putting their lives on the line, and very often were losing their lives. The death rate was very, very high, and unfortunately they did not get the respect that they deserved. But anyways, check out the book, Battle Atlantic, Ted Barris. Excellent.